Have you ever felt like you don't really own a business, but you own a really, really high stakes job? Well, today we're breaking down a lesson from the Handyman's Blueprint, which is all about transforming that chaos into a high performance system. Let's get right into it. So look at this number, $34,500. That's a lot of money. And that is exactly what one failed pump cost a business owner after it flooded a job site. But, this isn't really about the cash. It was a wake-up call. A really painful, really expensive moment of clarity that something was fundamentally broken in the operation. And this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? That feeling, it's something so many tradespeople know deep down. That feeling that if you're not there, if you're not the one answering every call, the whole operation just grinds to a halt. That right there is what it feels like to be the bottleneck, the single point of failure. So let's actually dig into that. Let's talk about the real pain of being the bottleneck and how these incredibly expensive mistakes, what the source material calls tuition checks, are really just a symptom of a much deeper problem. Here's the core argument, and it's a big one. These massive failures, they don't just happen. They happen when you are so completely buried working in the business, running from one crisis to the next, that you have absolutely no time to step back and work on the business. You're just too busy putting out fires to ever build a fireproof structure in the first place. And this is where things get really interesting. This is about a whole new philosophy for your business. It's a fundamental shift in how you see your own role. You have a choice. Are you the bottleneck or are you the architect? And this table just lays that choice out perfectly. On one side, you've got the lead hand, the bottleneck. This person is essential, and that's the whole problem. They trade their time directly for money. If they get sick, if they take a day off, the income stops. They're the go-to for every single emergency. But on the other side, you've got the general contractor, the architect. They're not just doing the work, they are designing the entire operational system. They're building something that runs even when they're not there. You see the key difference? For the architect, systems run the business. They just run the systems. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, which one am I? How do you actually diagnose where you fall on this spectrum? Well, this brings us to something called the Tuesday night test. It's a super simple but incredibly powerful health check for your whole operation. So here it is, the Tuesday night test. And I want you to be really, truly honest with yourself here. Imagine it. It's 5 p.m. on a Tuesday. You walk away, you go home, and you turn your phone completely off. No calls, no texts, no emails until Wednesday morning. What happens? Would projects move forward? Would your team know what to do? Or would everything just fall apart? Your gut reaction to that question, it reveals everything. If your honest answer is no way, my business would be chaos, then the source material is pretty blunt about it. You don't own a business, you own a job, a really demanding, high-stakes job where you are carrying all the weight. But that's not the end of the story. The whole goal here is to give you the tools you need to build a business that can finally pass this test. So that brings us to the actual solution. How do you start? Well, you start with the 48-hour time audit. Because, as they say, the first step to fixing a leak is finding out exactly where it's coming from. So for the next 2 workdays, here's the assignment. You're going to track every single hour and sort your activities into one of 2 buckets. You've got high margin architect work. This is the stuff that actually grows the business, like drafting profitable quotes or vetting new specialists. Then you've got low margin lead hand work. This is all that reactive firefighting stuff, running to the supply house for a forgotten part or fixing a dumb mistake that never should have happened. Now, what's fascinating is what happens when people actually do this audit. The results are usually pretty shocking. Most owners discover that a staggering 70% of their week is being completely devoured by these low-margin reactive tasks, things that could be automated, delegated, or just eliminated. That leaves only 30% of their time for the important work that actually builds a resilient business. So this is your homework, straight out of the blueprint. It's a simple 3-step audit. First, track everything for 48 hours. Second, sort every task into those 2 columns. And then, and this is the most important part, you're going to circle the one single low-margin task that is your biggest time drain. That task, that becomes your first target. Because the whole goal here is to stop being the bottleneck and start being the architect. This little audit gives you the blueprint for the very first system you need to build. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's your single biggest time drain? And what would it mean for your business and for your life if you could finally get all that time back?